I don't know that I've ever given a homily before that begins by telling you the goal of the homily. But today, I'm going to tell you the goal of this homily before I even begin. The goal of this homily is that you don't change, and you don't change a thing about your life. The goal of this homily is that you don't change a thing about your life. Rather, it is that you think about all this. Just promise yourself that in the few minutes after the homily and when you go home and for the rest of the week, you'll just think about all this. This is the story of a great reversal. The traditional cultural expectations are shaken up. Jesus did it with words, essentially, words that every scripture scholar would agree and are convinced that they can directly come to us from the mouth of Jesus himself. These little phrases that we've heard over and over again if you grew up with these Gospels, those are truly from the mouth of Jesus himself. Words like, "Many who are first will be last, and the last will be first. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted. And whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Three sayings of this wise teacher. Each indicates another reversal. Those sentences appear in all four Gospels, and they're all over the letters that follow the Gospels in the Bible. And today, all three of those sayings converge in this story you just heard of Lazarus and the rich man. The story begins just so matter of fact, and as a matter of fact, it's pretty matter of fact through the whole thing. There's not a single bit of moralizing that goes on here. Nothing like you should go out and do this now or anything like that, really. It begins so matter of fact. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "There was a rich man who dressed in purple garments and fine linen and dined sumptuously each day. And lying on his door was a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who would gladly have eaten the scraps from his table. Dogs used to come and lick his sores, Just matter of fact, no moralizing. So I ask you this morning to pay attention as you listen to this story to what makes you cringe. What makes you cringe when you hear it? Pay attention to what in this story makes you want to go to the next room or plug your ears. What is it in the story that makes you a bit uncomfortable? Because I'm convinced it's a story that's made to make us flinch a bit. There's something in us that's going to want to fight this, something that's going to make us cringe. First, reversal. Usually history names the rich, and we never learn the names of the poor. But not in this story. The poor man has a name. The rich man is just called the rich man. Consider yourself provoked. Not by Gary Brown, mind you. I'm throwing Jesus under this bus. Reversal number one. Second reversal. The rich man dresses sumptuously, even down to his linen underpants. Now I got to tell you, the gospel question was going to be, what kind of underpants are you wearing this morning? But I've matured a lot. So this guy's dressed sumptuously, I love that word, even down to his linen underpants, and he eats, no, he feasts every single day on amazing food, and everybody notices him. But the beggar Lazarus, he's not eating food, he is food for dogs who lick his sores. And then in the next world, the one clothed in fine linens is the beggar. And the rich man is parched and thirsty and ignored. Reversal, number 2. And then the third reversal. The reversal of audience expectations, that would be us. At first, we're told the rich man did nothing wrong. He's never moralized against, nobody's shaming him or condemning him for anything. He did nothing wrong, nor are we told the poor man did nothing wrong to deserve his fate, or that he did anything right, actually. Yet their roles in the world are reversed in the next world. Their roles are reversed in the next world. Does that not challenge our standard presumptions about the fortunate rich and the unfortunate poor? Are the rich fortunate? Are the poor unfortunate? Perhaps we've seen heaven and hell, you and I, as rewards merited and punishments deserved. But suppose heaven and hell are simply reversals of earthly status. What if in the next life, this life's non-suffering haves become suffering have-nots, and this life's suffering have-nots become non-suffering haves? Let me say it again. What if in the next life, this life's non-suffering haves become suffering have-nots, and this life's suffering have-nots become non-suffering haves? A simple reversal of fortune. Think about that, because that's reversal number 3. Now, if you were in that initial audience, as surely as you're sitting here today, and you heard that story for the first time in the first century Palestine, what would you have done? What would you have said? Would you have interrupted? Would you have pushed back? Would you have agreed? Would you have disagreed? Would people have begun arguing with each other about this story and its implications? All Jesus is asking you to do today is imagine, just imagine a different world than the one we're used to, the one we've taken as a given, that might not be such a given after all. All Jesus is asking us to do is let ourselves be challenged to raise our consciousness. He's trying to provoke us to think, luring us and leading us into thinking for ourselves, thinking in a way that could perhaps yet save this human family of ours. Jesus is saying to us this morning, get into the story. Put yourself into this story for your sake. Get into this story. Did everybody stay silent afterwards? Did the whole audience file past him afterwards saying, "Lovely parable this morning, Rabbi"? If that were true, Jesus would have failed utterly with this story. Move on, Master. Try a different audience, maybe a different parable. This story is a clear reversal. It's a clear reversal of traditional expectations within Jesus' own culture and our own. It's a reversal of who it sees as the good guys and the bad guys. For them, the good guys were the clergy and the scholars and the aristocrats, the learned. And they get negated. And the bad guys, the Samaritans, the tax collectors, the poor, they get exalted. A good disciple, and I hope that's us, a good disciple doesn't rush to conclusions. A good disciple lets him or herself be challenged and chew on this and let themselves be lured and led and provoked into reaction, response, and reflection. Are you up for that? One last thing. Notice from Abraham's side, this once upon a time beggar says nothing. It's his time of peace now. And nowhere in him is there any spite, any sign of a desire for revenge against this rich man. Nowhere. There's no anger in this one God has helped. He's just silent in gratitude for God's generosity to him. He's just silent in gratitude. No revenge, no rebuke against that guy who had everything when he didn't. No, that's not what happens when you get it. What will it take for us to see that this undoing of the world we've created for ourselves might be important to think about? Because perhaps the reversal has already begun. Wherever I go, I hear the rich talking about how afraid they are for their riches. I hear it all the time. I was just in Chicago yesterday, actually, for a wedding. And everybody I met in those 3 or 4 days in Chicago, everybody that had money talked about their fears. And somebody's going to take it, and somebody's going to show up at their door, and somebody's going to turn this upside down for them. I don't see that fear in the poor. Do you? Could that be true for us who have so much? If that is true, then the undoing has begun. It's already happening. And then the end of the tale. It's almost hard to hear, especially for somebody in my line of work. When the rich man asks Abraham to send somebody to warn his brother, you can almost hear in Abraham's voice this utter discouragement, perhaps resignation, as he says, almost with a sigh, I've tried that. I've tried that. I've even raised somebody from the dead to tell them, but even that wasn't enough. You almost hear this weariness in his voice, this hopeless sigh. Nothing's going to change. Abraham is saying, nothing's going to change. That it's improbable that even real faith will win out. And even given all that, God knows perhaps that we won't change, that nothing's going to change. Next time you pass a homeless person on the street, just imagine that in that very instant, there is this great reversal. And you're the one standing on the corner with a cardboard sign. And he is driving your hot little Honda. I have a hot little Honda. Really, please,